Hello, Michelle Worthington. Thank you so much for coming to speak with me today. These books are absolutely adorable, and Michelle was one of the first people that I ever saw in Brisbane who was able to provide help to other authors about their author business. So her talk is going to be amazing.
No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure.
You know what? I haven't put pressure on anyone coming through.
You wouldn't.
Oh, so please tell me a bit about the books that you've written so far.
Sure. So, like you said, I've been around a while, but it did take me 10 years to get my first book published. So I made every single mistake that you could because I had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't know that you could ask for help. For me, somebody who was just starting out, I didn't feel like I had enough street cred to go to like a writers festival or turn up at a writers group, because I thought you had to kind of already have something published to be able to do that. So I didn't tell anybody what I was doing until my first book came out in 2011. And then you quickly realise that if you wait until your book comes out, you've kind of missed a lot of the momentum that happens with publishing a book. So I kind of failed forward a lot, wrote picture books because that was kind of not only where my heart is, but also being a busy mum, I could write it, at cricket practice or on the back of a McDonald's napkin. And I'm really enjoying now transitioning from picture books into chapter books and middle grade novels. So yeah, it's kind of been a bit of a journey for me. So I'm excited to tell everybody about that.
That is exciting. So did you find that you were writing kids' books when your kids were around that age, and as they get older, you're writing, you're growing as your kids grow?
I think I am.
That's so sweet.
I think
that
it
is so sweet.
I think it was because a lot of mums, especially creative mums, like they go to the bookstore or they go to the library and they look at the books and they go, really?
My gosh, yes.
And a lot of them, when my big boys were little, a lot of it was based on US TV shows.
Yeah.
So there wasn't, and there still really isn't, a whole heap of support for Aussie content, especially Aussie kids books.
Yeah, I feel like the first thing that came out was like Bluey.
And so
Bluey and the Wiggles.
Yeah, so that's kind of made this explosion of Australian content, which is musical and on screen. So I think it's time.
Yes, absolutely.
We
need books for it too.
Yeah, start supporting Aussie authors as much as we're supporting all the arts. But I think you're absolutely right that it did start out as a lot of mums do, just with telling stories to their own kids and then going, oh,
you could write that down.
Yeah, cool. Is it any good? And trying from there. So the picture books definitely gave me the confidence to write the longer books as the boys were getting older. And my youngest boy's been diagnosed dyslexic as well. So for me now, it's not just books. It's looking at all different ways that we can promote storytelling to kids in all different formats.
I know Comic Sans gets a bad rap, but I feel like something that was similar to Comic Sans, if not Comic Sans, the font was made for dyslexic people.
Absolutely.
And whenever I do my editing, that's my dirty little secret, I turn it into Comic Sans and you find all the mistakes.
Yeah.
If you've got it in a serif font, or if you've got it in even just Arial font, you can't see the mistakes as well as if you've got everything in Comic Sans. It's crazy.
It is, and it's just how our brains work. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a really big push to make sure that we are making all sorts of books accessible for all sorts of kids. And font is a huge and really simple thing that publishers can do to make sure that all kids can read them.
And font size too.
Font size.
And being able to feel like you're reading quickly then gives you confidence. I've found that a lot with
Absolutely.
A lot of the chapter books that I read as a child. When the font was larger and you felt like you're actually making progress in it, it gave you more inspiration to continue to read.
Yeah, and I think there's a big push coming, not necessarily from the publishers, but from the general public, which I love, saying that, teachers and caregivers want to be able to help their kids transition from picture books up to bigger text. And it's happening later and later in their schooling career, so we need to make sure that we're making those products that they need.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that sounds fantastic. which one of these was your first?
So I haven't got my first one here, was the Bedtime Band. That was my first. It was actually based on a poem that I wrote when I was in grade 5.
That's so cute.
I know, and then when I decided, I thought, I'll just start with that because that one was about Australian animals, which my kids loved, and I'm a really proud Aussie author. Like, I think we've got an amazing diversity that we can share here in Australia. So I just sent it off as it was, and it was terrible. It was, and I just was like, why is nobody wanting to publish this? Because
the first one is always terrible.
Yes, terrible. So I really learn a lot working with editors and working with publishers about what makes a really good picture book. And so then I moved kind of from there. But probably the first picture book that I actually really thought about purpose, so who was going to use it, making sure I had lots of those beautiful tools in it that teachers loved, and still making it really fun for kids that they could read over and over and over again. That was The World's Worst Pirate. So, you know, me being such a slow learner, that was, that's 6 books in, 5 or 6 books in, so it did take me a little while, but I learned by doing.
Yes.
Which is not a bad thing.
No, absolutely, because then you also have documentation of how you've learned and the progress you've made.
Yes.
If you just learn by watching or by reading it and then you're like, oh, okay, now I've got it perfect, I feel like you don't make as crucial of mistakes as you need to make the progress.
Yeah. And everything you write should be just that teeny bit better than the last thing that you wrote.
100%.
And you're never going to get it perfect. I think all the perfectionists in us are pretty much slammed down by rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection, and you just know that it's never going to be perfect. And if you wait until you think it's perfect, then you're going to be waiting a very long time.
We have a saying here. So we're currently at Performance Studios. They are one of the sponsors for the festivals, and we get to use their podcasting room, which is the room we're in, to do all of the interviews. And Stuart runs a business executive course, and his thing is perfectionists have no standards. They never know when to stop. Someone who has high standards is very different. So you can say you have high standards without being a perfectionist.
Absolutely. And knowing that creativity is imperfect by nature.
Yes.
And 2 people can read this book and both of them will get 2 different things out of it. It's so subjective what we do as well.
I think it comes back to no one really likes a Mary Sue. No one what's the other word? There's a Mary Sue and a Gary Stu or something for the male and female counterparts. But yeah, no one, when you read one of those characters, you're like, I'm really disconnected from this and this is now boring because everyone likes them and it belongs in fan fiction purely as a fan fiction.
Yeah.
It doesn't, which is where it originated from.
Yeah.
Like a Star Trek fan fiction. But no one likes a perfect character. People love flaws and they love it when real people have mistakes and make mistakes and have flaws.
Absolutely, they're often the best teachers.
Absolutely, 100%. So what else have you got here? Because it looks like you've got beautiful kids books and then all of a sudden you've got the Bushranger's daughter.
Yes.
This looks so fascinating.
This is the one that's coming out actually just before the festival. So I'm really excited about it. So it'll be available for the festival probably for, the first time in Australia, which I'm really excited about. So in my journey kind of transitioning from picture books to chapter books and now middle grade, it's a historical middle grade based on my family's history. So it's my mum's family, so my grandma's family, and it was the journey that they took from New South Wales to Queensland when they were looking for a better life for their kids basically. And anyone who's ever been out to Charleville and Cunnamulla knows that it's an unforgiving place, especially for people not used to that climate, and they faced a lot of hardships. And it's really about following one of the girls who's my great aunt. And how she kind of comes to terms with being born in Australia to English parents, and how she's still trying to navigate her way through this old world English thinking and this new Australian way of life. So I had so much fun researching. It took me 2 years to research and write the book, and then another 2 years after that to find a publisher to take it on. But I'm really excited about this one, and it's the first in a series. So
that was my next question.
Yeah,
is it part of a series?
It will be part of a series, absolutely. So I'm really excited to see everybody's reaction to the first one.
Oh, brilliant. I think it looks fantastic. Just the title alone. Everyone's like, don't judge a book by its cover. So as I was saying, The Bushranger's Daughter sounds like a really fascinating title, and it's kind of like Australian authors are not leaning into, oh, this is the glamorized fantasy of like previous Australia, but we're getting into the nitty gritty, which is what is the sort of thing that sparks stories like Robin Hood for England.
Absolutely.
Or what's his name? All the cowboys in like Bushrangers are
Jesse
essentially
James
just Billy the Kid and that sort of stuff.
Yep.
When we look at Bushrangers, they're just Australian cowboys.
Yeah. I need to tell you though, some of the family aren't overly ecstatic. That I discovered a bushranger in our family.
I feel like that's more exciting.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too, but and you know what? It's one of those things, because I'm studying pirates and smugglers at the moment for another book, which I love as well. I'm a bit of, as you can tell, I'm a bit of a pirate nut. My favourite movie growing up was the pirate movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I was a bit addicted to that. And it's funny because it's relative. Some people called them sailors, some people called them pirates, some people called them bushrangers, some people called them, pioneers who were trying to support family through drought and flood, and so I think it's a really lovely perspective of history that's coming through with Australian authors now, where we're telling real, true stories, and even though they're fiction, they're based on family history, which I love.
Yeah, there's so little that we know about Australian family histories. We have snippets, but a lot of it still was either lost or, used as toilet paper. Far too frequently has someone used like a diary or like something that's been essential for documentation as just, oh yeah, that's fine, it's kindling, don't even worry about it.
Exactly. And especially just coming back from England and Ireland and going to places that are older than people could ever imagine, and we have got this amazing Indigenous culture and Indigenous history in Australia.
It's like 100,000 years old or something.
I know, and then we are such a small new part of that, and I think there's this really exciting shift that's happening, that we want to give space that everyone can tell their stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that with the Writers' Festival, we're always looking to have people incorporated that are from what we're considering minority groups or disadvantaged groups, or voices that just aren't read often enough. There's so much I love Aboriginal mythology. I absolutely love it.
I've been obsessed with it since I was a kid.
I was raised on Aboriginal stories from my local area, and my family's super white. They're like German, Scottish, British, but we were born here. And so those stories just helped us understand the land better and give respect to what was happening around us, and the stories that they just build society and they build culture and community so much more effectively than just, in history at this time this person did this, moving on to the next date. It's the stories and the heart that comes out through them that really helps us to be sort of joined with that and to feel connectedness.
I think that's why writers' festivals are so important as well, because, and I think we've learnt that over the last couple of years when we haven't been able to physically get together and talk. Because having the opportunity to hear the story behind the story is sometimes the best bit. That's the magic bit, where you get to find out, why did you write about pirates? Why did you write about pugs? Why did you write about Granny Smith? And I think getting that sort of momentum back, where we're talking to authors, letting authors have a bit of a platform about the creative process, and also being able to share and listen to other people's stories, that is where big magic and big change happens. So I'm so excited that we get to do the writers' festivals again.
Oh, so am I. It's just so important to help bring people back together. And it wasn't in like a super spreader space where it's like a big concert in a mosh pit or anything like that. It was calm, it just had this really smooth energy last year, and I know that we'll be able to replicate that again this year. It's in a beautiful garden space as well, so it's all outdoors, you're in the fresh air. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's going to be so great.
It's going to be amazing. I am so excited for it. So tell us a bit about the talk that you'll be giving at the festival this year.
So I love the topic of this talk. I'm going to be talking about the importance of resilience in children's fiction. So books, especially picture books, are so much more than just about a story to read to kids at bedtime. They help with literacy. They can be tools that teachers and caregivers can use to initiate discussions on difficult subjects. But in an age of technology and where books are competing with YouTube and iPhones and apps and things like that, I think the lovely thing about books, especially children's fiction, and we're going to talk about this when we do the workshop, is that it's almost like a coming home. You know that if you turn to page 94, exactly the same words are going to be on page 94. You can reread it and reread it and reread it, and there's something comforting about knowing that it's the same story, but each time you get a little bit more out of it, and especially going back and reading books at different ages or different stages in your life, reading that same book that you loved as a kid can have an entirely different meaning. And I think that can actually build resilience, because it's something that is comforting. It's something that you can have in your hands, it's tangible, but also you can learn things in a not preachy way, but in a way that opens, windows and doors to experiences that you might not have exposure to in your everyday life.
Oh, 100%. It's like I don't know, when I was a child, I used to love books that were really highly detailed, because you would look in all the gaps and spaces and find more. But you'd reread them every time, and you would learn about people that you'd never interacted with. You would learn about different foods and different society. You would learn about different cultures and country. And for me, I would also learn about what was sort of more appropriate to say and not say, what was meant to be said in a space, and how to behave. And for a child, it's so important to know where they kind of fit in the world and where they can express themselves safely. And
Absolutely.
Books are a fantastic side of that.
Absolutely. And they're also, a lot of the time, when we look back and we think of our favourite memories growing up of children's literature, sometimes it's actually more of a memory of a person necessary than a book. So it's like, my grandma gave me these, and her handwriting is in the front of it, or this is the book that my granddad used to read me every time we came over, or this is my favourite book that I asked my mum to read me every night. And it's that memory of having that person that you love most in the world giving you their undivided attention to read this book. And it worries me a little bit that kids are missing out on that. Not very many kids get read bedtime stories anymore, and the exposure that they're getting to books is either happening at daycare or school, or in a format where that they are more used as more like vegetables. You know what I mean? Like, you must read, instead of them being that beautiful dessert that they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've been to a few schools recently, and a lot of them, their libraries have shrunk, and they're saying that the kids aren't reading. And my question to them is always, like, they've shrunk the libraries because they're not getting used. And so they're turning them into e-learning spaces and that sort of stuff. And like I'm not an ebook person. I'm an audiobook person or a paperback person.
Same.
Paperback is just like I want to escape from everything, and those 2 pages in front of me encapsulate the entire world.
Yeah.
And audiobooks, because I refuse to listen to mainstream radio. I feel like a lot of people can empathize with that.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine going into like having a library that you're not in every lunchtime, that you're not like piling through the different books or the same book over and over again, just to see what's happening, just to see, just to find more secrets out of them. So,
and the non-fiction section has just been wiped.
Oh yeah, it's the textbooks that belong in the school or nothing.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Because I mean, a lot of them were outdated, and I absolutely understand that, but a lot of the kids who are reluctant readers will go and look at the non-fiction section about a topic that interests them, which is then the gateway for them to get confidence to, you know, try something else. So
volcanoes or dinosaurs are always a big top one.
Exactly. So I know, you know, librarians have just got such a difficult job at the moment, not only just keeping their jobs and hopefully being full-time and not part-time, but, you know, trying to do that in the current environment. I just take my hat off to them, and they really need to be supported more, because libraries can do so much more than just, you know, entertain kids for 1 period a week. Like when a school uses a library properly, it benefits everybody.
I see this thing go around Facebook occasionally where it says libraries are the last frontier where you aren't expected to spend money. And I think that in itself is like suddenly the pressure is off. You can read any of those books in that library, you can borrow any of those books in that library, and it won't cost you a cent. It is completely free. That knowledge, all yours. So yeah, please go and sit in your library and treasure that space, treasure that moment. Go and use your local library, because honestly, if we don't use it, we lose it. And unfortunately, we're losing them faster than we should.
Totally agree.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. This has been fantastic, and the progress that you're making through these is beautiful. I can't wait to read The Bushranger's Daughter and see all about that. It sounds so cool. It sounds so cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited to tell everyone a bit of the history on it in the talk, and also, you know, I invite all authors, whether you're published or not, to come to my workshop on writing resilience for younger readers, because I think it's something really important that we can offer as authors, and it's something that's really, really needed at this time in 100%. The world as well.
Oh, it's going to be so good. And there's so many children's authors in Logan, all like juvenile fiction and adolescent fiction, young adult fiction, borderline teenager, young adult fiction. There's so many of them just here in Logan, and so bringing them all together, come and see Michelle's talk. It's going to be amazing, and she's going to give you so many pearls of knowledge. You'll leave feeling very refreshed.
And inspired. Hopefully.
And inspired, yes. You'll leave feeling more resilient.
That's the plan.
So where can people find more of you?
So you can go to michelleworthington.com, and that has links to all my social media. And you can contact me through there as well if you've got any questions that you wanted to ask.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. And we will see you on September 9th and 10th at the Logan Writers Festival. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.